My name is Ross Callahan, 67 years old, and until yesterday, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. The funeral for Linda, my wife of 42 years, had just ended when our son Adam offered to drive me home. Instead, he took a turn onto a deserted dirt road in rural Colorado. The car stopped. Adam turned to me. "This is where you get off. The house and business are mine now." He left me there with just a small bag. No phone, no money. But what Adam never knew about his old man might just save me. If you're enjoying this story so far, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below what you would do if someone you trusted betrayed you like this. Now, let me tell you what happened next. I grew up in the bitter cold of rural Minnesota during the 50s and 60s. Life was simple but hard back then. My father worked the same factory job for 30 years, coming home with grease under his nails and exhaustion in his eyes. My mother kept our modest home spotless and made sure my brother and I never went hungry, even when money was tight. They taught me about honest work and self-reliance without ever having to say it outright. Those lessons sank deep into my bones. When I turned 18 in 1976, with the Vietnam War still raging, I enlisted in the Army. Some might call it patriotism. Others would say it was just a young man looking for direction. Whatever the reason, the military changed me in ways I never expected. I qualified for Special Forces training, where I learned skills most civilians never acquire. Survival techniques, combat tactics, strategic thinking, the ability to assess threats and respond with calculated precision. The mental discipline to keep cool when everything around me was chaos. I served 2 tours before coming home in 1979, carrying experiences I rarely spoke about afterward. After the war, I bounced between jobs, trying to find my place in a country that felt different than the one I had left. Nothing seemed to fit until I discovered woodworking. There was something about transforming raw lumber into functional art that calmed the restlessness in me. The focus required, the patience, the craftsmanship, all spoke to something deep inside me. I met Linda at a community art fair in Denver during the summer of 1980. She was selling watercolor paintings that captured the Colorado mountains with a delicate touch that still showed their strength and majesty. I was showcasing a few handcrafted tables and chairs. Our booths were next to each other, and by the end of that weekend, we had exchanged more than just pleasantries. Linda had a laugh that could make anyone around her smile. Her creativity flowed from her like a natural spring, and her kind eyes saw beauty in places most people overlooked. We had a whirlwind romance, the kind you only believe in when you are living it. 6 months later, we were married in a simple ceremony with just a few friends and family members present. With our combined savings and a small loan, we launched Evergreen Custom Furniture in a tiny workshop outside of Boulder. Linda had an artist's eye for design and color that complemented my technical skills perfectly. She could talk to clients, understand their needs, and translate them into sketches that I would bring to life with wood, tools, and time. We were a perfect team, building not just furniture, but a life together. In 1983, Adam was born. I still remember holding him for the first time, this tiny human with Linda's eyes and my stubborn chin. We were overjoyed, and for several years, everything seemed perfect. Linda would bring him to the workshop, and he would watch me plane wood or hammer joints together. As a toddler, he would play with the sawdust, making tiny mountains on the workshop floor, while Linda handled the books or spoke with clients. The business grew steadily. By 1990, we had moved to a larger facility and hired 3 craftsmen to help with production. By 2000, Evergreen had expanded to include a showroom in Denver and a second production facility in Colorado Springs. Our reputation for quality and artistry spread, bringing in commissions from hotels, restaurants, and wealthy homeowners across the western states. Linda remained the heart of the business. Her warm personality and genuine interest in clients turned customers into friends. She remembered the names of their children, sent cards on special occasions, and made everyone feel like they were our only client. I focused on production, quality control, and training our growing team of artisans. As our business expanded, so did our lifestyle. We moved from our modest starter home to a beautiful property at the edge of Boulder with mountain views and 3 acres of land. We bought nicer cars, took vacations, and provided Adam with everything we thought a child should have. Perhaps that was where we went wrong. Adam never knew the struggle of making ends meet or the satisfaction of earning something through hard work. From private schools to summer camps, from the latest toys to his first car at 16, everything came easily to him. Linda and I had grown up with so little that we wanted to give our son everything. We never realized we might be depriving him of the most important lessons in life. I was often at the workshop until late evening, ensuring orders were completed to my exacting standards. Linda managed the business side and cared for Adam. She had a soft spot for him, making excuses when teachers complained about incomplete homework or disrespect in the classroom. "He is just spirited," she would say. "He will grow out of it." We disagreed sometimes about how to raise him. I wanted more chores, more responsibility, more consequences for poor choices. Linda worried that I was being too harsh. "Your father was strict with you, and you hated it," she would remind me. "Let him be a child while he can." I usually deferred to her, not wanting to cause friction in our otherwise harmonious marriage. Looking back, I should have held my ground more firmly. Adam attended an expensive college in California, studying business administration. His grades were mediocre, but his social life thrived. The stories he shared during holiday visits centered around parties and spring break trips, rather than classes or internships. Still, he graduated, and we celebrated his achievement with genuine pride and hope for his future. After college, Adam drifted between jobs in marketing and sales, never seeming to find his footing. At 27, when he was between positions again, Linda suggested he come work for Evergreen. "It is his birthright," she said. "The business will be his someday anyway." I agreed, hoping that seeing how much effort went into building and maintaining our company might finally instill the work ethic he lacked. Adam joined Evergreen as a management trainee, learning different aspects of the business. He showed an aptitude for sales, but less patience for understanding the craftsmanship that was our hallmark. He would rush through quality checks, miss important details in customer specifications, and arrive late to meetings with suppliers. Yet he could be charming when needed, especially with clients who were impressed by his confidence and easy smile. I began to notice subtle changes in the workplace atmosphere. Employees who had been with us for years seemed less comfortable, more guarded. Clients occasionally mentioned promises Adam had made that contradicted our standard practices. When I raised these concerns with Linda, she suggested I was being overprotective of the business. "He has a different management style than you," she would say. "Change is not always bad." Then, in early 2022, Linda began experiencing unusual fatigue and abdominal pain. After weeks of tests, the diagnosis came back. Stage 4, pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was grim from the start. The doctors gave her perhaps 2 years with aggressive treatment. I immediately stepped back from daily operations at Evergreen to be Linda's primary caregiver. Adam, by default, took on more responsibilities at the company. I provided guidance from home when I could, but my focus was on making Linda comfortable and helping her fight the disease that was consuming her from within. The next 18 months were a blur of hospital visits, chemotherapy sessions, brief rallies that gave us hope, and devastating setbacks. Linda faced it all with remarkable courage, more concerned about Adam and me than herself. I slept in hospital chairs, learned to administer medications, and researched alternative treatments until my eyes burned from staring at computer screens late into the night. Adam visited his mother, but his appearances became increasingly sporadic as her condition worsened. He always had an excuse: an important client meeting, a supplier issue, a staff problem that needed immediate attention. Linda never complained about his absences, but I saw the hurt in her eyes when days passed without a call or visit from her only child. I poured everything I had into caring for Linda. Every moment I was not researching treatments or consulting with doctors. I was by her side. We reminisced about our early days together, laughed over old memories, and sometimes just sat in silence, holding hands as the sunlight moved across her hospital room. During these quiet moments, I felt closer to her than ever before, even as I was losing her bit by bit each day. The final week of Linda's life arrived with a certain terrible inevitability. Her once vibrant body had become frail, her voice reduced to a whisper. The hospice nurse gently explained that it would be days, not weeks. I called Adam immediately, leaving a message when he did not answer. He called back hours later, promising to visit the next day. He did not arrive until the following evening. During her last coherent moments, Linda motioned for me to come closer to her bed. Her fingers, once so deft with a paintbrush, now trembled as they clasped mine. "Ross," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "I worry about Adam. He is not the man we hoped he would become." I squeezed her hand. "I will always look after him, Linda. I promise." She shook her head slightly. "No, you do not understand. He island." But whatever warning she tried to give was lost, as a coughing spell overtook her. When it passed, she drifted into a sleep, from which she never fully woke again. Linda passed away peacefully 3 days later, early on a Tuesday morning in October. I was holding her hand, telling her about the aspen trees turning golden on the mountainside outside her window. One moment she was breathing, and the next, she was not. The transition was so subtle that I continued talking for several minutes before I realized she was gone. I called Adam immediately. He arrived at the hospice center nearly 4 hours later, his eyes red but dry. He stood at the doorway of her room, looking at his mother's body with an expression I could not quite read. When I embraced him, his body remained stiff, his arms giving only the slightest pressure in return. The days following Linda's death passed in a fog of grief and administrative necessities. There were death certificates to obtain, a funeral to arrange, relatives and friends to notify. Adam took charge of the funeral arrangements, insisting on an elaborate service at an expensive funeral home. When I suggested something simpler, more in line with Linda's unpretentious nature, he dismissed my input. "Mom deserves the best," he said firmly. "We can afford it." The funeral took place on a rainy Friday afternoon. The expensive casket was surrounded by elaborate flower arrangements in a chapel filled with dark wood and stained glass. Over 200 people attended, employees from Evergreen, clients we had worked with over the years, friends from the community, and distant relatives who had flown in for the occasion. I delivered a eulogy that I barely remember giving, my voice cracking as I tried to capture 42 years of love and partnership in a few inadequate minutes. Adam spoke next, his words polished and appropriate, but lacking the raw emotion I felt tearing at my insides. Throughout the service, he maintained a composed, almost distant demeanor, accepting condolences with perfect social grace. At the reception following the burial, I observed Adam moving smoothly between groups of attendees. With Evergreen employees, he was the concerned boss, assuring them operations would continue normally. With clients, he was the confident businessman, subtly discussing upcoming projects. With my old friends, he was the dutiful son, expressing concern for my well-being while accepting their sympathies. I sat alone for much of the reception, nodding at well-wishers but finding myself unable to engage in substantial conversation. The reality of Linda's absence was hitting me in waves, each one threatening to drown me. How would I continue without her gentle guidance, her laugh, her hand in mine as we fell asleep each night? The future stretched before me, empty and pointless. The days following the funeral were no better. I moved through our home like a ghost, sleeping little, eating only when I remembered. Adam called daily, his concern seemingly genuine. On the third day, he arrived unannounced, carrying a folder of documents. "Dad, there are some papers we need to take care of," he said, setting them on the kitchen table. "Insurance forms, bank accounts that need to be transferred, business matters that cannot wait. I know this is a difficult time, But these things need your signature. I nodded numbly, grateful for his assistance with matters I had no energy to address. He placed document after document in front of me, pointing to signature lines, explaining each one in terms that washed over me without truly registering. I signed where indicated, trusting my son to handle these necessities while I focused on simply breathing through the pain of loss. "Dad," Adam said after the last document was signed, "I have been thinking. This house has so many memories of Mom. It might be good for you to have a change of scenery for a while. Why not stay with me for a few weeks? My guest room is comfortable, and you should not be alone right now." The offer touched me. Perhaps I had misjudged his detachment. Maybe this was his way of showing care when words failed him. That might be good, I agreed. Just for a little while. "Pack a bag with essentials," he suggested. "We can always come back for anything else you need later." I moved mechanically through the bedroom Linda and I had shared, selecting a few changes of clothes, toiletries, and the framed photo of us from our 30th anniversary trip to Yellowstone. Everything fit into a single overnight bag. The lightness of it struck me as appropriate somehow. What did material possessions matter now? Adam was on his phone when I came downstairs, speaking quietly but intensely to someone about inventory valuations and client contracts. He ended the call when he saw me. "Ready to go? We can stop for dinner on the way if you like." The drive began normally enough. Adam's home was on the north side of Boulder, about 20 minutes from the house Linda and I had shared for nearly 30 years. As we drove, he spoke about the business, recent orders, and his ideas for expanding into new markets. I responded with minimal comments, my mind still wrapped in grief. It took me nearly 15 minutes to realize we were heading in the wrong direction, moving west into the mountains rather than north toward town. "Adam, where are we going?" I asked, looking out at the increasingly rural landscape. "I need to make a quick stop first," he replied, his eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. "Will not take long." The pavement eventually gave way to a dirt road, and the houses became fewer and farther between. My confusion grew as we climbed higher into the foothills, the car bouncing over ruts and rocks. "Adam, this is not the way to your house," I said, an edge of concern creeping into my voice. "Almost there," he replied, his tone unchanged. We drove for another 10 minutes before he suddenly pulled over at a wide spot in the road. There were no buildings in sight, just pine trees and rocky outcroppings. The October afternoon was growing cool, the sun already dipping behind the mountain ridge to the west. Adam turned off the engine and faced me. The expression on his face sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "This is where you get off, Dad," Adam said, his voice flat and emotionless. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "What?" "The house and business are mine now." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out copies of the documents I had signed days earlier. "You signed over everything to me. Full ownership of Evergreen Furniture, the house, the bank accounts, all legally transferred." The fog of grief that had surrounded me for days began to lift, replaced by a cold clarity. "What are you talking about? Those were insurance forms, account transfers." Adam's laugh held no humor. "You should have read what you were signing, but you never really paid attention to details unless they involved your precious furniture, did you?" He tapped the papers. "Power of attorney, property transfers, business ownership documents, all notarized and filed." I reached for the papers, but he pulled them away, returning them to his pocket. "You cannot do this," I said, my voice rising. "That business was built by your mother and me over 40 years. And for 40 years, I was always second to that business," Adam replied, his calm facade cracking to reveal something ugly underneath. "You were never there, Dad. Every school play, every baseball game, every parent-teacher conference, it was always Mom. You were too busy with your precious craftsmanship to be bothered with your son." "That is not true," I protested. "I was building a future for us, for you, a future you never let me be part of," he shot back. "When I joined the company, you undermined me at every turn. Nothing I did was ever good enough for the great Ross Callahan, master craftsman." "Well, Now it is my company, and I will run it my way. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I struggled to comprehend it. Adam, I am your father. You cannot just leave me out here. I thought about that, he said, reaching into the back seat and grabbing my overnight bag. But I am not completely heartless. You have clothes, and there is a town about 15 miles east along this road. If you start walking now, you might make it before dark. He tossed the bag onto the dirt outside the car. I am 67 years old, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. You cannot do this. Actually, I can, and I have. He leaned across me and pushed open the passenger door. Get out, Dad. When I did not move, his voice hardened. Get out now, or I will drag you out myself. I slowly stepped out of the car, my legs feeling unsteady beneath me. Adam reached across and pulled the door shut. Through the open window, he delivered his final words. Consider this retirement. You worked so hard for so long. Now you can finally rest. His smile never reached his eyes. Goodbye, Dad. The car reversed, turned around, and headed back down the dirt road. I stood there, watching until the dust cloud faded and the sound of the engine disappeared. Only then did the full reality of my situation hit me. I was alone on a mountain road, miles from civilization, with only the clothes on my back and whatever was in my small bag. No phone, no wallet, no identification. My son had taken everything and abandoned me like unwanted trash. The shock kept me immobile for several minutes. How could my own son do this? The boy I had taught to ride a bike, who I had comforted after nightmares, who Linda and I had poured our love and hopes into. How could he have become this cold, calculating stranger? Eventually, survival instinct took over. I picked up my bag and checked its contents. 3 changes of clothes, basic toiletries, and the framed photo of Linda and me. No phone, no wallet. Adam must have removed them while I was packing, or when he grabbed the bag from the back seat. The sun was lowering in the sky, the temperature dropping with it. October in the Colorado mountains could bring freezing nights. I needed to find shelter before darkness fell. With no better option, I began walking east, as Adam had suggested, each step taking me further from the life I had known and toward an uncertain future. The dirt road stretched before me, winding between pine trees and rocky outcroppings. My dress shoes, appropriate for a funeral but not for hiking, began to raise blisters on my heels within the first mile. My knees, which had been giving me trouble for years, protested the uneven terrain. But physical discomfort was nothing compared to the emotional pain tearing through me. Linda was gone. My son had betrayed me in the most profound way possible. Everything we had built together over 4 decades was now in the hands of someone I no longer recognized. The magnitude of the loss was almost impossible to comprehend. Hours passed as I walked. The sun disappeared behind the mountains, plunging the landscape into deep shadows. The temperature dropped rapidly, my suit jacket providing little protection against the mountain chill. My pace slowed as exhaustion set in, each step becoming an act of will rather than automatic movement. Just as darkness was making it difficult to see the road, I spotted a structure ahead. As I got closer, I recognized it as an old Forest Service ranger station, the kind used during fire seasons, but often abandoned during quieter months. The small cabin appeared unoccupied, no lights or vehicles visible. I approached cautiously, calling out in case someone was inside. When no response came, I tried the door, locked, as expected. Desperation made my decision easy. I found a rock, broke a window at the back of the cabin, and carefully reached in to unlock the door. The interior was basic but functional. A small living area with a wood stove, a simple kitchenette, a desk with a radio that appeared non-operational, and a cot against one wall. No electricity, no running water, but at that moment, it looked like the Ritz-Carlton to my exhausted eyes. I collapsed onto the cot, physical and emotional exhaustion finally overwhelming me. The events of the day played on repeat in my mind as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Linda's funeral, the documents, Adam's cold eyes as he abandoned me on that mountain road. Each memory was a fresh wound. In the middle of the night, a thunderstorm rolled through, rain pounding on the roof and finding its way through small leaks to drip steadily onto the floor. The temperature inside the cabin dropped further, and I wrapped myself in the thin, musty blanket I found folded at the foot of the cot. Sleep came in brief, troubled intervals, punctuated by periods of alert despair. As the first light of dawn filtered through the dirty windows, I sat up and took stock of my situation with new clarity. The initial shock had worn off, leaving room for something else to take its place. Not just anger, though there was plenty of that. Not just hurt, though the betrayal still felt like a physical wound. Something else was emerging from the chaos of emotions. Resolve. Adam thought he had left an old man to die on a mountain road. He believed he had taken everything from me, but there was something he did not know. Something Linda had only partially understood. I was not just a furniture maker who had served in the military decades ago. I was a man who had learned to survive and overcome in circumstances far worse than this. And Adam had no idea what resources I still had available to me. As I watched the sunrise through the cabin window, something shifted inside me. I was not just a victim of betrayal. I was not powerless, and I was most certainly not finished. The ranger station offered little in the way of comfort, but it provided what I needed most that first morning: time to think and plan. Sitting on the edge of the cot, I allowed myself to access memories and skills I had deliberately kept dormant for decades. Few people knew about my years in special forces during Vietnam. Linda knew I had served, but I had shared only sanitized versions of my experiences, wanting to protect her from the harsher realities. What I never told her, or anyone else, was how those experiences had shaped my approach to civilian life afterward. The military had taught me to prepare for worst-case scenarios, to have contingency plans, to trust no system completely. When Linda and I started our furniture business, I established a separate bank account under a slightly different version of my name. Each month, I transferred small amounts into this account, creating an emergency fund that would not appear on our regular financial statements. By 1990, I had also rented a safe deposit box at a bank in downtown Denver, one that had no connection to our regular banking. In that box, I kept $10,000 in cash, a set of alternate identification documents under the name Ross Calloway, and contact information for several former military colleagues who had also transitioned to civilian life but maintained certain connections. I never accessed these resources, never needed to. They were insurance against a catastrophe I did not expect to face. Linda knew about the emergency fund, but not the safe deposit box or alternate ID. I had kept those secrets not out of distrust for her, but from a desire to leave my military mindset behind and embrace the normal family life we were building. Adam knew nothing of this part of my life. To him, I was just his father, the furniture maker who spent too many hours at the workshop and too few at his baseball games. He had no idea that the patient craftsman who taught him to sand wood properly had once been trained to survive behind enemy lines, to create resources from nothing, to turn disadvantages into strategic advantages. Now, those long dormant skills would be my salvation. I checked my bag again, hoping I had overlooked something useful. The photo frame of Linda and me caught my attention. I turned it over and carefully pried off the backing. Behind our anniversary photo, I had placed a small card with a 10-digit number written on it, the code to my safe deposit box. It was still there. Adam had unwittingly left me with the key to my contingency plan. The immediate challenge was reaching civilization. According to the maps pinned to the ranger station wall, the nearest town was indeed about 15 miles east, a small community called Pinewood. With no food or water in the cabin, I needed to start walking immediately. I changed into the most comfortable clothes from my bag: khaki pants, a flannel shirt, and a light sweater. My dress shoes were already causing blisters, but I had no alternatives. Using strips torn from a spare t-shirt, I wrapped my feet for additional protection before setting out. The mountain morning was crisp and clear after the night's storm. Under different circumstances, I might have appreciated the beauty of the golden aspen leaves against the deep green pines, the distant snow-capped peaks catching the morning sunday. Now, I saw only the difficult terrain between me and survival. I followed the dirt road east, maintaining a steady pace despite the pain in my feet and knees. Military training had taught me to push through physical discomfort, to focus on the objective rather than the obstacles. My objective now was clear: reach town, access my resources, and begin planning my response to Adam's betrayal. 4 hours, and approximately 12 miles into my journey, I heard the rumble of an approaching vehicle. I moved to the side of the road as an old pickup truck came into view. The driver, an elderly man with a weathered face partially hidden by a gray beard, slowed as he approached. "You all right there, mister?" he called through his open window. Not many folks walking these roads, especially in clothes like that. I made a quick decision to be partially honest. My son and I had a disagreement. He left me to find my own way back to town. The man whistled. "Must have been some disagreement. Hop in. I am heading to Pinewood." I gratefully climbed into the passenger seat, introducing myself simply as Ross. "Harold Jenkins," the driver replied. "Got a small farm just outside town. You from around here?" "Boulder," I said, "though I am not sure I still have a home there." Harold gave me a sidelong glance but did not press for details. As we drove, he filled the silence with local news and observations about the early winter weather that was predicted. I responded with appropriate comments, while assessing my next steps. "Your son," Harold said eventually. "He would not happen to be Adam Callahan, would he?" The question caught me off guard. "You know Adam?" Harold's expression darkened. "Everyone in Pinewood knows him. He bought the old Miller property last year, comes up on weekends sometimes. Not what you would call popular with the locals." "Why is that?" I asked, though I could guess the answer. "Treats people like they are beneath him. Tried to get the township to rezone some protected land so he could build some fancy resort. When that failed, he started buying up water rights, causing problems for local farmers." Harold shook his head. "No offense, but your son has made enemies around here." The information did not surprise me, but it deepened my understanding of what Adam had become. The pattern of entitlement and manipulation extended beyond his treatment of me. We reached Pinewood just before noon. The small town consisted of a main street with basic businesses, a general store, a diner, a gas station, and a few other establishments. Harold pulled up in front of the diner. "Lucy's got the best food in town," he said, "and she might be able to help you figure out your next move." I thanked Harold sincerely for the ride and his kindness. He waved it off. "Good luck to you, Ross. Whatever happened with your son, you seem like a decent sort." The diner was warm and smelled of coffee and grilled onions. A few locals looked up as I entered, taking in my disheveled appearance before returning to their meals. I took a seat at the counter, aware that I had no money to pay for food but hoping to use the diner's phone. A middle-aged waitress, with short gray hair and kind eyes, approached. "What can I get you, honey?" Her name tag read Sarah. "Just water for now," I replied. "And if possible, I need to use your phone. I can explain my situation." Sarah studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Phone's on the wall by the restrooms. Help yourself." I thanked her and moved to the phone, grateful for small kindnesses in the midst of such betrayal. I dialed a number from memory, one I had not called in over 15 years. After 4 rings, a gruff voice answered. "Hello, Jack. It's Ross Callahan." A pause. "Ross? Jesus, it's been years. Everything okay?" "No," I replied honestly. "I need help." "Are you still in Denver?" "Yeah, same place. What's going on?" I gave him the briefest version of events, enough to explain my situation without going into emotional details. Jack listened, without interruption. "Where are you now?" he asked when I finished. "A town called Pinewood, about 2 hours northwest of Denver." I have nothing on me except clothes. Sit tight, Jack said without hesitation. I'll be there in 3 hours. Where should I meet you? Lucy's Diner on Main Street. I'll find it. And Ross, hang in there. We'll figure this out. The call ended, and I returned to the counter, where Sarah had placed a glass of water and a menu in front of my seat. Find who you needed? She asked. Yes, thank you. My friend is coming from Denver, but it will be a few hours. She nodded. You look like you've had a rough time. How about some lunch while you wait? On the house. The unexpected kindness brought a lump to my throat. Thank you. I promise I'll come back and repay your generosity. Sarah waved away my promise. Pay it forward someday. Now, how about our meatloaf special? I accepted gratefully, and as I ate the simple but delicious meal, I began to formulate my plan. Adam believed he had left a helpless old man on a mountain road, someone who would struggle just to survive. He had no idea that his actions had awakened something in me that had been dormant for decades. The strategic thinker, the survivor, the man who had once specialized in turning desperate situations to his advantage. By the time Jack arrived, I had mapped out the first phase of my response. Jack, a former Army Ranger who now worked as a private security consultant, entered the diner and spotted me immediately. Though we were both 30 years older than when we had first met, some recognitions go beyond physical appearance. Ross, he said, gripping my hand firmly. You look like hell. Feel worse, I admitted. Thanks for coming. Brothers in arms, remember? He sat across from me. Now tell me everything, and let's figure out how to fix this mess. For the next hour, I provided Jack with all the details of Adam's betrayal, the documents I had signed, and the resources I could still access. Jack listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Your son made one critical mistake, he said. He assumed you were just an old furniture maker with no options. He has no idea who he is really dealing with. That night, I slept in Jack's guest room, in his modest Denver apartment. For the first time since Linda's death, I felt something besides grief and shock. A sense of purpose was taking shape, replacing the helplessness of betrayal. I was not just a victim. I was a man with skills, resources, and now, a mission. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought of Linda. I am going to fix this, I whispered to her memory. Not just for me, but for everything we built together. I was no longer just a grieving widower, abandoned by his son. I was once again a strategist, a survivor, a man with a plan, and Adam had absolutely no idea what was coming. The next morning, Jack drove me to the bank in downtown Denver, where my safe deposit box had remained untouched for years. Using the code I had hidden behind Linda's photo and the alternate identification I had prepared decades earlier, I accessed the box without difficulty. The $10,000 in cash was still there, along with a birth certificate, social security card, and driver's license, in the name of Ross Calloway. I also retrieved a small notebook containing contact information for people from my military days. First things first, Jack said as we left the bank. You need legal advice from someone with no connection to your family business. Through his security work, Jack knew a lawyer named Diane Mercer, who specialized in cases involving financial fraud and elder abuse. We met her that afternoon in her downtown office, where I explained my situation in detail. What your son did constitutes fraud at minimum, Diane said, after reviewing my story. Having you sign documents under false pretenses, especially while you were grieving, is clearly actionable. The question is, what do you want to achieve? I want my business back, I replied without hesitation. Not just for me, but for the employees who have been with us for years, for the reputation Linda and I built together. Diane nodded thoughtfully. We can certainly build a case, but legal proceedings take time. Meanwhile, your son has control of all the assets and resources. Time works in my favor, I said. Adam thinks I have disappeared. He will not be expecting any challenge to his authority. While he believes he is secure, I can gather evidence and resources. A strategic approach, Diane agreed. Let me do some preliminary research on the documents you signed and the current status of Evergreen Furniture. In the meantime, you should establish yourself with this alternate identity and begin gathering intelligence. With Jack's help, I found a small, furnished apartment in Lakewood, a suburb west of Denver, using my Ross Calloway identification. I opened a new bank account, got a basic cell phone, and purchased essential items. By the end of that first week, I had established the foundation for my new temporary life. My next step was learning exactly what was happening at Evergreen Furniture under Adam's leadership. Through careful online research at the public library, I discovered concerning signs. The company website had been redesigned, emphasizing production volume over craftsmanship. Social media comments from customers mentioned declining quality and missed delivery dates. A Business Journal article quoted Adam describing plans to modernize operations and increase profitability through production efficiencies. I needed inside information. After careful consideration, I contacted Marcus Reeves, who had been my workshop manager for 15 years. Using a prepaid phone, I called him after hours. "Marcus? It's Ross Callahan." The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "Mr. C, is that really you? Adam told everyone you had a breakdown after Mrs. C's funeral and checked yourself into some facility out of state." The lie did not surprise me. "That is not what happened, Marcus. I need to talk to you, but not over the phone. Can you meet me?" We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in a neighboring town. When Marcus saw me, his expression shifted from uncertainty to genuine relief. "Thank God you're okay. Things at Evergreen have gone to hell since you left." Over the next 2 hours, Marcus filled me in on the changes Adam had implemented. Veteran craftspeople had been let go, replaced by less skilled workers, willing to accept lower wages. Quality control standards had been reduced to increase output. Custom designs, once our hallmark, were being phased out in favor of standardized pieces that could be produced quickly. "Last week, he fired Tony and James," Marcus said, referring to 2 master woodworkers who had been with us for over a decade. "Said they were too slow, too expensive. The new guys can barely tell oak from pine. I have been correcting their mistakes on my own time, just to maintain some standard." "Why do you stay?" I asked. Marcus shrugged. "Loyalty to what you and Mrs. C built. And honestly, jobs for 55-year-old workshop managers are not exactly plentiful. But I am looking." By the end of our conversation, a plan had formed in my mind. "Marcus, what would you say to starting fresh? A new company, focused on the craftsmanship and quality that made Evergreen successful in the first place?" His eyes widened. "You serious?" "Very. I have some resources, not a lot, but enough to lease a small workshop space. I would need your help contacting the craftsmen." Adam let go, seeing who might be interested in joining us. "Count me in," Marcus said without hesitation. "And I can tell you right now, Tony and James would sign on in a heartbeat. Probably half a dozen others, too." Over the next month, we put the plan into action. I found a modest workshop space in Golden, about 20 miles from Evergreen's main facility. Marcus quietly reached out to former employees, and as predicted, many were eager to join our new venture. I named the company Timberland Artisan Furniture, a nod to our commitment to traditional craftsmanship. Starting small was a necessity born of limited resources, but it also provided advantages. We could focus exclusively on high-quality custom pieces. Our overhead was low, allowing us to be competitive on pricing while maintaining superior craftsmanship. Most importantly, we could operate under Adam's radar, at least initially. I reached out to a few longtime clients of Evergreen, people who had become friends over the years. Without divulging the full story of what had happened with Adam, I explained that I had started a new venture, focusing on the traditional craftsmanship that had become my signature. Several immediately commissioned pieces, providing the cash flow we needed to sustain operations in those early months. Word spread quietly, but effectively. Clients who had been disappointed by Evergreen's recent quality issues found their way to Timberland. Each commission was completed with painstaking attention to detail, each delivery accompanied by personal service that had once been Evergreen's hallmark. 6 months after Adam had abandoned me on that mountain road, Timberland Artisan Furniture was not just surviving, but thriving. We had expanded to a team of 8 craftspeople, all former Evergreen employees who shared my commitment to quality. Our order book was filled 3 months in advance, and our reputation was growing through word of mouth among discerning clients. Throughout this period, I maintained a low profile. I still used my Ross Calloway identification for business purposes, grew a beard, and avoided situations where I might encounter Adam or current Evergreen employees. According to Marcus, Adam had heard rumors of a new competitor, but had dismissed them as insignificant. His focus remained on expanding production volume and cutting costs, strategies that were beginning to backfire as Evergreen's reputation for quality continued to decline. The turning point came unexpectedly. The Aspen Ridge Resort, a luxury mountain development, was seeking a furniture maker for their new lodge and 50 guest cabins. It was exactly the kind of large-scale, high-profile project that could establish Timberland's reputation firmly in the market, or, conversely, save Evergreen from its declining fortunes. Through my industry contacts, I learned that Adam was counting on winning this contract to address Evergreen's growing financial difficulties. He had leveraged the company heavily to fund his expansion plans, and loan payments were coming due. The Aspen Ridge project represented not just prestige but financial salvation. I decided it was time to emerge from the shadows, at least partially. I personally prepared Timberland's bid for the Aspen Ridge project, focusing on our commitment to quality, sustainability, and customization. I included sample pieces showcasing our craftsmanship and detailed designs specifically tailored to the resort's alpine aesthetic. 2 weeks later, the resort's developer called to inform me that Timberland had won the contract over 3 competitors, including Evergreen Furniture. Our combination of competitive pricing, superior quality, and personalized design had made the difference. The contract would sustain Timberland for at least a year and establish us firmly in the high-end hospitality market. I knew the news would soon reach Adam. Through Marcus, I learned of his reaction. First dismissal, then anger, then frantic investigation into this upstart competitor that had beaten him for such a crucial contract. It would only be a matter of time before he discovered who was behind Timberland. That discovery came sooner than expected. One Tuesday afternoon, as I was reviewing design plans with 2 craftsmen, the workshop door burst open. Adam stood there, his face flushed with rage, his expensive suit incongruous in our sawdust-filled space. "You," he said, his voice a mixture of shock and fury. "You're supposed to be gone." I dismissed the craftsman with a quiet word, then turned to face my son. "Hello, Adam. We need to talk." Adam stood frozen in the doorway of the workshop, his expression cycling through disbelief, rage, and something that might have been fear. "How?" he finally managed. "How did you survive? How are you here?" I gestured to a chair near my workbench. "Sit down, Adam." "I'm not sitting anywhere," he snapped. "You stole the Aspen Ridge contract from me. You deliberately undermined Evergreen." "I competed fairly for a contract with a company I built from nothing," I replied calmly. "Just as I built Evergreen from nothing with your mother years ago, before you stole it and left me for dead on a mountain road." Adam's face flushed darker. "I didn't leave you for dead. There was a town nearby, 15 miles away," I corrected, "through mountain terrain, at sunset, with no phone, no money, no identification. What exactly did you think would happen to a 67-year-old man in those circumstances?" He looked away, unwilling to answer directly. "You survived, obviously. And now you're trying to destroy everything I've built." "Everything you've built?" I repeated, feeling a surge of anger that I carefully controlled. "You built nothing, Adam. You took what your mother and I created through decades of hard work, and in 6 months, you've nearly destroyed it. The quality is gone. The reputation is failing. The finances are in shambles. You don't know anything about the business anymore," he shot back. I'm modernizing, streamlining operations. The old ways aren't profitable enough. The old ways built a company that supported 30 families and had clients waiting months for our work, I said. The old ways created a reputation for quality that made Evergreen a respected name across the western states. Adam paced the workshop floor, glancing contemptuously at the works in progress around us. This little operation won't last. I'll make sure of it. I'll tell everyone who you really are, that you abandoned your responsibilities at Evergreen after Mom died. Is that the story you told? I asked. That I had a breakdown and abandoned the company? Not that you tricked me into signing over everything while I was grieving, then literally abandoned me miles from civilization? A flash of uncertainty crossed his face. No one would believe you. Marcus believed me, I said. So did Tony, James, and the other master craftsmen you fired. The ones who now work here, rebuilding what you tried to destroy. And I think the clients who have returned to me because your quality doesn't meet their standards would believe me too. Adam's confidence visibly wavered. He glanced around the workshop again, this time taking in the quality of the pieces being created, the organized workstations, the drawings and designs pinned to the walls. He was seeing what I had built in just 6 months, with limited resources but with the skills and dedication he had always dismissed. What do you want? He finally asked. Money? Is that it? A payoff to go away? I shook my head. I want what your mother and I built together. I want Evergreen restored to what it was meant to be. A company that creates furniture that lasts generations, that values craftsmanship over quick profits, that treats its employees like family. That's not happening, Adam said flatly. Evergreen is mine now. All legal, all signed and filed. Signed under false pretenses, I countered, while I was grieving and unable to fully comprehend what I was signing. My lawyer calls that fraud, possibly elder abuse. Courts tend to take a dim view of sons who trick their bereaved fathers and abandon them in remote locations. For the first time, real uncertainty showed in Adam's expression. You're bluffing. You wouldn't drag the family name through a public legal battle. I prefer not to, I agreed. But make no mistake, Adam, I will do whatever is necessary to rectify what you've done. The choice of how we proceed is yours. Just then, the workshop door opened, and Marcus entered with Tony and James. They stopped short at the sight of Adam. Everything okay, Mr. C? Marcus asked, his stance protective. Fine, Marcus, I assured him. Adam and I are just catching up. Adam looked from me to the 3 men, all former Evergreen employees whom he had discarded. Something in their unified presence seemed to push him over an edge. His face contorted with rage. You think you can threaten me? He shouted. You're nothing. A washed-up old man playing with wood while I run a real business. In 3 quick strides, he was at my workbench, sweeping tools and drawings to the floor in a violent gesture. This pathetic little shop won't save you. I'll bury you in legal fees before I let you touch what's mine. As he moved toward me, his hands clenched into fists, I felt something shift inside me. The calculated restraint I had maintained since finding myself on that mountain road gave way to a more primal response. When Adam's hand reached for my collar, muscle memory from decades earlier took over. In one fluid motion, I sidestepped his grasp, caught his extended arm, and used his own momentum to redirect him. Adam found himself suddenly facing my workbench, his arm locked behind him in a control hold that caused no damage, but rendered him completely immobile. Don't, I said quietly. You've already made enough mistakes. The workshop fell silent. Adam's breathing was ragged, his body tense against the restraint. I held him there for 5 seconds, then released him and stepped back, giving him space. Adam turned slowly, rubbing his arm, his expression a mixture of shock and something new, respect, or perhaps fear. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. Who are you? He asked quietly. I'm your father, I replied, though there are parts of me you never knew or tried to understand. Marcus cleared his throat. We should give them some privacy, he said to Tony and James. The three men nodded and stepped outside, closing the door behind them. Adam slumped into the chair I had offered earlier, the fight gone out of him. "What happens now?" he asked. I considered him carefully. This angry, entitled man was still my son, still the boy Linda and I had raised, however flawed our efforts had been. Despite everything, I couldn't help remembering him as a small child, looking up at me with trust and admiration as I taught him to sand wood with the grain. "That depends on you," I said. "Evergreen is failing under your management. You know it. I know it. The question is whether you care enough about your mother's legacy to save it." "What are you proposing?" he asked warily. "You step away from Evergreen," I said. "Completely. I'll install Marcus as CEO, with a board that includes several long-term employees. You'll sign the company back to that board, acknowledging the fraudulent nature of the original transfer. And what do I get?" he demanded. "You avoid a public legal battle that would destroy what remains of your reputation. You avoid potential criminal charges for fraud and elder abuse. And you get a chance to start over, to find what you're actually good at, instead of trying to run a business that was never right for you." Adam stared at me, calculation visible in his eyes. "If I refuse, then I proceed with legal action," I said simply. "I have documentation, witnesses, and a very motivated lawyer. It would be messy, expensive, and public. You would likely lose everything anyway, but with a fraud conviction attached to your name." The silence stretched between us as Adam wrestled with his options. Finally, he spoke. "I need to think about this." "Take 24 hours, I said. "Not longer. Every day that passes, Evergreen loses more of what made it special." Adam stood, straightening his suit jacket with a gesture that seemed more habitual than purposeful. "I still don't understand how you did all this," he said, gesturing around the workshop. "How you survived, built this place, found these people." "There's a lot you don't know about me," I replied. "Maybe someday, if you make the right choice now, we can change that." He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "Did Mom know? About whatever you did before? Whatever let you survive and do all this?" "Some," I admitted. "Not everything. She knew there was more to me than the furniture maker, but she loved that part of me best, so that's mostly what I showed her." Adam nodded once, then left without another word. I sat heavily on my stool, feeling the weight of the confrontation in every joint and muscle. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to fully feel the grief of losing Linda, the pain of Adam's betrayal, and the exhaustion of rebuilding from nothing. Marcus poked his head in a few minutes later. "You okay, Mr. C?" "I will be," I assured him. "One way or another, this will be resolved soon." That night, alone in my small apartment, I spoke to Linda's photo as if she could hear me. "I tried to keep my promise to look after him," I said, "but I never understood him the way you did. I don't know if he can change, if there's still something of the boy we raised inside that man, but I'm giving him a chance, Linda. One chance to do the right thing." The next morning, my phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock. Adam's voice was subdued when I answered. "I'll do it," he said. "Your terms. But I want enough money to start over somewhere else." "We can arrange a reasonable settlement," I agreed. "Not excessive, but enough for a fresh start if you use it wisely." A week later, we met at Diane's office with Marcus and representatives from Evergreen. Adam signed the documents transferring ownership to the newly formed board, with a statement acknowledging the circumstances of the original transfer. In return, he received a settlement that would support him for a year, while he figured out his next steps. As we prepared to leave, Adam stopped me in the hallway. "I'm moving to Arizona," he said. "Fresh start." I nodded. "That might be good for you." He hesitated, then asked, "Will you tell me sometime? About who you really are, what you did before?" "Maybe," I said. "When you're ready to listen, not just hear." He nodded once, then walked away. I watched him go, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Relief that Evergreen was saved, sadness for the relationship we might never fully repair, and a strange, unexpected hope that this might be the beginning of Adam's own transformation. As I turned to join Marcus and Diane, I realized that in trying to destroy me, Adam had inadvertently forced me to reclaim parts of myself I had buried decades ago. The strategic thinker, the survivor, the man who could build something from nothing. In his betrayal, he had set me free. 1 year passed. Autumn in Colorado brought the aspens to their golden glory once again, the mountains wearing their annual crown of color before winter would strip them bare. I stood at the large windows of the new Timberland Artisan Furniture showroom in Boulder, watching the leaves dance in the October breeze, and reflected on how much had changed. After Adam's departure, Marcus had taken over as CEO of Evergreen Furniture, implementing a careful restoration of the company's fundamental values and quality standards. It was slow work, rebuilding a reputation, but with the original craftspeople returning and clients giving second chances, Evergreen was gradually finding its footing again. Meanwhile, Timberland had continued to flourish. The Aspen Ridge contract had been completed to universal acclaim, leading to similar projects with other luxury resorts and hotels. We had expanded to a team of 22 artisans, including several apprentices I personally trained in traditional woodworking techniques. The work gave me purpose, and the people gave me community. I had settled into a comfortable but modest home on the outskirts of Boulder, nothing like the large house Linda and I had shared, but suited to my simpler needs now. My friendship with Sarah, the diner waitress who had shown me kindness at my lowest moment, had deepened over monthly dinners where we shared stories and laughter. At 65, she had her own history of resilience, having raised 3 children alone after her husband's early death. Her practical wisdom and warm humor brought light into my life when I least expected to find it. News of Adam came sporadically. He had found work with a real estate development company in Phoenix, apparently doing well in a field better suited to his personality and skills. Our communication was limited to occasional emails, brief and factual, but without the hostility that had characterized our last encounters. It was not reconciliation, not yet, but it was a fragile beginning. The bell above the showroom door chimed, pulling me from my thoughts. I turned to greet the customer and was surprised to see Adam standing there, looking tanned and somehow younger than when I had last seen him. "Dad," he said, the word sounding tentative. "I was in town for a meeting. Thought I might stop by." "Good timing," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I was just about to close up for lunch. We walked to a nearby cafe, making awkward small talk about the weather and his flight from Arizona. Only after we had ordered and the waitress had left us alone did Adam get to the point. "I've been in therapy," he said abruptly, "for about 8 months now." "That's good," I said, genuinely pleased. "How is it going?" "Hard," he admitted. "Turns out I have a lot of issues to work through. Entitlement, anger, fear of never measuring up." He met my eyes directly. "A lot of it goes back to you and Mom, to how I perceived things growing up." I nodded, prepared to listen rather than defend. "I was always jealous of the business," he continued. "It felt like your first child, the one that got all your attention, all your love. I wanted to destroy it, to prove I was more important." "Pretty messed up, right?" "We made mistakes in raising you," I acknowledged. "Your mother and I. We gave you things instead of time, especially me. We thought we were building a legacy for you, but we didn't include you in that process." Adam stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "My therapist says understanding why I did what I did doesn't excuse it. I'm still responsible for my choices." "That's true," I agreed. "What I did to you after Mom's funeral." He hesitated, emotion making his voice rough. "I've had nightmares about it, about what could have happened to you out there. But it didn't," I said. "I survived. I rebuilt. And in a strange way, what you did forced me to reclaim parts of myself I had buried for decades." Adam studied me with new curiosity. "The military training, the way you handled me in that workshop. There's a lot I don't know about you, isn't there?" "More than either of us has time for today," I said with a small smile. But maybe, if you're interested, we can start filling in those gaps. By the time we finished lunch, we had arrived at a tentative plan. Adam would come for Thanksgiving next month, meet Sarah and some of the people who had become my chosen family over the past year. It would be a beginning, not a full reconciliation, but a step towards something new. As we parted outside the cafe, Adam hesitated, then asked, "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me?" I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, Adam. It's a process. I'm working on it, just as you're working on yourself. The fact that we're standing here talking is a start. He nodded, accepting this partial answer. "I'll see you at Thanksgiving then." "I'll be there," I promised. That evening, I hosted a small dinner at my home for Sarah, Marcus and his wife, and two of my youngest apprentices who had nowhere else to go for Sunday meals. As we shared food and stories around my table, I felt a sense of peace that had been elusive since Linda's death. The family I had now was not the one I had envisioned when Linda and I were building our life together. It was pieced together from relationships forged in crisis, cemented by shared values and mutual respect rather than blood. But it was real and meaningful nonetheless. Later, alone in my workshop behind the house, I ran my hands over the cherry wood I was shaping into a special piece, a rocking chair designed with Sarah in mind. The wood was warm under my fingers, alive in its own way, with grain and character that told its unique story. Working with it required respect for its nature, patience with its quirks, and vision for what it could become. People were not so different, I reflected. Adam had his own grain, his own nature. So did I. We had both made terrible mistakes, hurt each other in profound ways. But perhaps, like wood that has been mishandled, we could still be shaped into something new and strong and beautiful if approached with the right combination of honesty, skill, and patience. As I carefully shaped a curved armrest, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the mountain road where Adam had abandoned me, through the months of rebuilding both my life and my sense of self, to this moment of quiet creation. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it had also set me free from limitations I had placed on myself, from the narrowness of identity I had accepted for decades. I was more than a furniture maker, more than Linda's husband or Adam's father. I was a complex human being with skills and strengths I had forgotten I possessed, with capacity for resilience I had not tested in years. In losing everything, I had paradoxically gained a more complete version of myself. The young cannot understand this paradox, I thought, that sometimes our greatest losses lead to unexpected freedom, that starting over, while painful, can be an opportunity to build something truer to our authentic selves. That forgiveness, offered with clear eyes rather than blind obligation, can free both the forgiver and the forgiven. These were the lessons I now tried to pass on to my young apprentices, not just through woodworking techniques, but through stories and example. Legacy, I had come to understand, was about more than DNA or inheritance. It was about values transmitted, wisdom shared, positive influence extended beyond the boundaries of blood relation. As I set down my tools for the evening, I spoke aloud to Linda, a habit I had not abandoned. "You would like the family I've found," I told her, "and I think you'd be proud of how I've handled things with Adam. Not perfect, but with as much grace as I could manage." The rocking chair would be finished in time for Christmas, a gift for Sarah, who had shown kindness to a stranger in need. The young apprentices would continue learning, some staying with Timberland, others eventually starting their own workshops, carrying forward techniques and values I had taught them. Evergreen would continue rebuilding under Marcus's thoughtful leadership. Adam would either find his way back into some version of family, or he would create his own path forward. But either way, he had been given the chance to choose. And I would continue creating beautiful, useful things with my hands, finding meaning in craft and connection, grateful for the unexpected freedom that had come from the very moment that was meant to destroy me. What would you do if someone betrayed you so completely? Could you find freedom in that betrayal rather than letting it destroy you? Have you ever lost everything only to discover that what remained was somehow enough? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that sometimes our deepest losses can lead to unexpected new beginnings. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And until next time, remember that how we respond to betrayal says more about our character than the betrayal itself.